So new reporting from MS Now digs into how the White House is planning to approach the next 7 months before the midterms. The central focus will be the economy. But as White House reporter Akayla Gardner writes, cracks are emerging within the very coalitions that re-elected President Trump. And Akayla joins us now. So thanks for your reporting on this. What were those coalitions, and what is driving the drop in support?
Mika, part of President Trump's win in 2024 was really driven by historic margins for a Republican presidential candidate that he had with young voters, with people of color. And have we seen the president's approval ratings drop? When you really dig into some of the crosstabs, those are exactly the groups that the president is continuing to see a decline in his popularity with. It includes Latino voters, it's black voters, it's independent voters. And that is a huge warning sign, especially according to allies that I've talked to close to the White House, who say that the two most important issues in the midterms is going to be the president's approval rating and his reception of the economy. And we've seen since last November, the White House really acknowledged that they needed to refocus on affordability. That's why President Trump has been essentially crisscrossing the country to give speeches focused on the economy. But a huge issue with the way the president talks about the economy, according to analysts that I've spoke to, is he's not really acknowledging the pain that Americans continue to feel. He talks about positive data, and the White House has certainly seen that when it comes to inflation and jobs, especially in recent weeks. But he's not really acknowledging that people continue to feel this pain when it comes to grocery prices, when it comes to health care. He's only talking about the economy in terms of very rosy outlooks and not really giving way to what people feel like is right now a disconnect between how he's talking about the economy and how they feel about it.
Yeah, Akayla, the strategy right now seems to be just to tell people everything's great, everything's fine. The stock market's at 50,000, which is a figure that even Pam Bondi raised at a at a hearing the other day. Just ridiculous. But that's not working. I mean, that clearly is not working. What is there any other message that this administration potentially thinks it can get out there?
Well, President Trump, tomorrow, he's going to Georgia. He's going to be in the district that Marjorie Taylor Greene, of course, left when she left Congress and had a very public falling out with President Trump. Someone who was once called the mayor of MAGAville was wearing a MAGA hat on the House floor. And something that came up in my reporting is a lot of the critiques that she has made of President Trump continue to resonate with Republicans. Those include how the president has handled the Epstein files, how she said that she wanted him to focus more on domestic issues versus his expansive foreign policy agenda, and also talking about healthcare and affordability. Those are some of the same issues that she raised that President Trump has really struggled with. But we saw White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles say that the president is going to be traveling less abroad this year, which really seemed like an acknowledgement that they were hearing some of these criticisms, that the president needs to focus more on domestic issues. But I think what remains to be seen is the president actually going to change how he talks about some of these issues? You even hear him sometimes in speeches say, my advisors told me not to talk about this, but I'm going to talk about it anyway.
And you got 2 aircraft carriers heading toward Iran, right? So
right.
That's not exactly going to plan.
Yeah, no, it's not. You know, Willie, it's so fascinating what we've heard over the past week. This is the White House that had a lot of tough economic readings over the first year. Of course, the president talked about the stock market, and many of his cabinet members talked about the stock market. But working Americans continue to struggle. And if you look at the jobs created in the first year of Donald Trump's term, they're dwarfed, completely dwarfed by the number of jobs that were created in Joe Biden's last year. Not even a close comparison. And yet they got a couple of pretty good numbers last week, and now to hear them talk, I swear it's a complete flashback to Bidenomics. Like, they are Joe Biden's White House now, trying to say, oh, the economy's doing a lot better than you think the economy's doing. And they're doing the sort of things that I did, talking about the macro instead of the micro, the fact that people can't afford their rent, groceries continue to go up, and just the cost of living, it's health care, it's people are falling further and further behind. But they're pointing to the Dow and they're pointing to other things. They might as well go out and have a Bidenomics press tour, because that's exactly who they sound like right now.
Yeah, that was one of the great failings of the early Biden campaign in 2024, was saying, you just don't understand how good things are going for you. Just let us explain it to you. I mean, you even had the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, shouting during a hearing about the Epstein files, about the Dow being over 50,000, and you're all refused to accept that. I don't know why she was talking about that in the Epstein hearing, but that's the point you're making. And Akela, the president, they've tried, this White House, to send him out to talk about affordability. There's an acknowledgement by people, as you know, around him that that is the key question, what will determine not just 26, but perhaps the presidential election in 28. The price of living in America, the cost of goods, the rent, let alone the cost of buying a house in this country. And every time he's gone out to do one of these rallies, ostensibly about affordability, he had said explicitly affordability is a hoax of a concept invented by Democrats to go after me. So if he can't get his hands around that, if immigration is slipping away from him because of the scenes we've seen in the streets, what is the core key issue that Republicans will be running on here in the midterms?
Well, I think a really key difference from how President Biden and how President Trump are talking about the economy is Biden would often say there's still more work to do. That is really lacking from President Trump's message right now, and it's something that I'm going to be watching going forward to see if he changes. But part of the strategy that I'm told that the White House is looking at is they're looking to dispatch President Trump and members of his cabinet and the Vice President Vance to popular podcasts. And this has really been part of that coalition that Susie Wells has talked about, that she says she thinks about all the time. It's new Trump voters, people that she worries about will be Republican voters long term. And we've seen some of these major podcasters, whether it's Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn, they've criticized the administration on key issues, whether it's Joe Rogan comparing ICE to the Gestapo or Theo Vaughn essentially tagging Vice President Vance and Speaker Mike Johnson last year about the Epstein files. So those are coalitions that they're trying to tap into. And there's a recognition that some of these anti-establishment voters are really areas where the president needs to shore up his support.
All right. The new piece is online now. MS Now White House reporter Akela Gardner, thank you very much for your reporting and analysis this morning. And still